on the federal judge overseeing the deported migrants case, with the president accusing him of, quote, doing everything in his power to usurp the power of the presidency. Now, it should be noted that even some conservative legal analysts say the judge is just doing his job as outlined by the very law in question. The presidential assault on the judiciary, a co-equal branch of government, has already stoked fears among some of a constitutional crisis. The new chapter appeared to come after the DOJ had a noon deadline to answer some key questions regarding hundreds of migrants deported to El Salvador over the weekend. They missed that deadline, and the information they eventually did provide to U.S. District Judge James Boasberg was deemed, quote, woefully insufficient. The judge went on to say the DOJ evaded its obligations. He chastised the government for providing a sworn statement from a low-level ICE staffer that, quote, repeated the same general information about the flights. He then issued two new deadlines. The first is tomorrow at 10 a.m. when he demanded a declaration from, quote, an official with direct involvement in cabinet-level discussions about invoking the state secrets privilege. We'll hear more about that shortly. The other is a deadline of Tuesday for the government to brief him on how they did not defy his order. If they did, despite the reality the planes he ordered to turn around never returned to the U.S. with those migrants on board. Attorney General Pam Bondi was asked about the case last night.
This judge has no right to ask those questions. You have one unelected federal judge trying to control foreign policies, trying to control the Alien Enemies Act, which they have no business presiding over. And there are 261 reasons why Americans are safer now. That's because those people are out of this country. The judge had no business, no power to do what he did. They're meddling in foreign affairs. They're meddling in our government. And the question should be, why is a judge trying to protect terrorists who have invaded our country?
Now, there are new questions about at least one of those 261 migrants whom Attorney General Pam Bondi called terrorists. This man, Jersey Reyes Barrios, he was a professional soccer player in Venezuela before fleeing political persecution. That is according to his lawyer. He legally sought asylum in the United States, but was detained in Southern California in 2024, says his lawyer. In a court statement, his lawyer also said the Department of Homeland Security alleged this tattoo on his left forearm shows he's a member of a notorious Venezuelan gang. Now, it is hard to make it out, but she says it's a soccer ball, topped with a crown to represent his favorite soccer team, Real Madrid. On Saturday, he was deported by plane, according to his lawyer, along with hundreds of others, and taken to El Salvador's infamous terrorism confinement center, which can hold up to 40,000 inmates in pretty draconian conditions. No one has heard from him since. Now, CNN has reached out to DHS for comment, but have yet to hear back. DHS has previously said it takes many factors into account for deportation decisions, not just tattoos. Back to the attacks by President Trump on Judge Boasberg earlier this week. The president called for him to be impeached, which led to that rare but swift rebuke from Chief Justice John Roberts, who released a statement that read in part, quote, for more than 2 centuries, it has been established that impeachment is not an appropriate response to disagreement concerning a judicial decision. Now, shortly before air, the president launched that new attack on Truth Social that read in part, if Justice Roberts and the U.S. Supreme Court do not fix this toxic and unprecedented situation immediately, our country is in very serious trouble. Let's start with Maggie Haberman, senior political correspondent for the New York Times, who is with me here tonight. Where is this headed, do you think? What does your reporting tell you about where the president wants this to go?
So a couple of things, John. This is very much a fight that the administration wants, to be clear, is over this specific case. You heard what the Attorney General said. She is describing this as a case of judges and Democrats and people who criticize what happened here wanting alleged terrorists, although she just calls them terrorists, to stay in the country. This is actually a lack of due process issue, which is why the judge in this case did what he did. Asking about an order not being followed is what any judge would do, no matter who they had been appointed by. I actually think what Trump said, yes, that was clearly an attack on Judge Boasberg. There's no question about that. He's playing a very risky game because judges don't like attacks on other judges, but he did not repeat the impeachment point, and I think that that is the key point there. I think he is trying to show he is still issuing a pressure campaign. He always does. We are going to see him continue to do that. But his calls for Congress to impeach judges, which is very hard to make happen, has upset some of his own staff, and it has upset leaders in the Senate and in the House, Republican leaders in the Senate